Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Martha Jensen. I'm Management Analyst for the Public Works Department. I have worked for the City of Dixon for 17 years, which means I was working here when the city had the furlough in 1991. The employees that could stick it out were happy to pitch in and do what was best for the city. I live in Dixon, it is my home, and I take pride in its future. I can't speak for all the unions, but I know that Local 1 employees are willing to work harder and smarter to do whatever it takes to get the job done. Excuse me, because we realize these cuts are economy-driven, and when times are flush again, we will be rewarded for hanging in there and doing whatever it takes. However, I would like to speak briefly about the administrative clerk position that is being recommended for elimination at the Public Works Department. The Public Works Department only has one clerical position. Therefore, if this position is eliminated, existing staff is expected to perform these duties. It states in your council packet that this position answers phones and files, which is such an understatement of the duties. This position performs all the typing, filing, citizen inquiries, service request, photocopying, purchase order compiling, timesheets, wastewater discharge letters and permits, opens and distributes mail, performs Spanish translation for wastewater notification flyers, laminates pesticide warnings, prepares labels, prepares staffing calendars and schedules, orders supplies, and tracks special district hours. Even though staff is willing to fill in whenever we can and to take on more duties for any position when times are tough, I don't see how we can absorb all these duties with existing personnel. To the best of my knowledge, no other department is losing their only clerical support. I also noticed that there are 1.5 positions within the engineering department that are being recommended to be funded by wastewater funds. The Public Works Administrative Clerk position could be funded the same way. In your council packet, it shows this position is 0.5 FTE, which is incorrect. It is actually funded as 0.6 FTE. If this position has to be included in the budget cuts, please consider cutting the position to 0.4 FTE, which equates to 16 hours per week, and funding part with wastewater funds since this position supports wastewater staff daily. I am respectively requesting that you consider this alternative. Thank you.
Any comments or questions of Martha? Thank you, Martha. Any other comments from members of the audience? Yes, Drew?
Drew Graskin, 540 Cypress. I took only about 40 minutes before a meeting earlier today and was starting to ramp through just some of the budget. And you know, I got to say there were some interesting things I found in there, but I do have a few questions. Has a cost-benefit analysis been run versus, you know, a vacancy with overtime versus just running part-time or having somebody on call for the firefighter and the paramedic job that they're looking at? Has anybody really looked at that?
Well, let me just clarify that with the vacancy in the fire department, we actually still incur overtime. And so that has been factored in the cost savings. We don't achieve the full cost savings of that position because there is overtime, because we have a vacancy, and that will continue on as long as that's frozen. When we actually did recommend in 09-10 to cut the firefighter seasonal positions, it's like a savings of, I think, $9,900, if I remember the number. That's also being proposed to be cut. That's actually a temporary job. So we are making cuts there. The nature of the fire department, there's a lot of training, a lot of certificates. So you have, in that case, normally a full-time employee doing the work to deliver the service, providing ALS service or automatic life support is ALS, those kind of things. So they're highly skilled employees. So they usually are full-time employees. They're not, quote, on call.
Okay, well, have the options been thrown out there with taking existing personnel and making, you know, instead of having them work, you know, however they work 5 days a week or 6 days a week or however they work, and instead reduce one day to being on call and reduce the salary for that particular day? You know, have those kind of options been looked at as possible ways of reducing instead of just getting rid of that, you know, that paramedic or firefighter?
Well, to answer your question, the firefighter, all the firefighters and the captains are participating in the furlough program. So they are either working less hours, 96 hours annually, or they'll contribute the same equivalent dollar amount. Okay, and as far as the, you had a second part to your question. I apologize.
It's okay. Well, it was basically, it started off with a vacancy in the overtime versus a part-timer and
Okay, right, okay. We actually achieve more savings having the vacancy because of the benefits the employee receives as a full-time employee. And then there is some overtime occurred by existing employees, but there is more savings by having the vacancy open. Because again, the firefighter benefits, PERS, there's different things I can go through individually, but so it's more cost-effective to leave it vacant and then have someone else actually earn overtime in case they have to fill in for that slot, but there's no more additional benefit costs.
A couple other things I did look at, and I did run across too, looking at some of the expenditures that the city makes, and it makes a regular person like myself kind of look at it and go, what are we doing spending money on this? And that is contributions to associations, groups that have their own members that pay their dues or pay into them. Why is the city giving them money as well? It's just kind of interesting. And then also one of the other things I ran across, and this one, everybody's going to look at this one, they're going to kind of laugh to themselves. A $30,000 expenditure to upgrade from Microsoft Office 02 to Microsoft Office 07. Why? Because I can already look at a few things that's going to change when that occurs. You're going to spend 30 grand, but you're also going to slow down some of your work efficiency because now you've got people that aren't used to this new software. It's going to slow them down. It's going to take a learning curve to get used to it. The other thing too is, has anybody looked into the end of life for Microsoft Office Suite, 2002? If my memory serves me right, 2007 was a requirement for anything that was Windows Vista, and I don't think the city's running anything that's Windows Vista. So it's not even a requirement to move to this Office Suite yet.
Basically, that is a one-time expenditure, and it's a good to cut $30,000, but it won't be an expenditure cut that will carry over to the other year. So that's one problem with it. The other problem with a particular cut is that we've been informed that Microsoft is not going to be supporting that.
02?
Yeah, so we can check into that further and verify that being correct, but that's what we've been informed by our IT staff.
Okay, because the point would be, because they're looking at coming out with Windows 7, and when they do that, of course, they're going to come out with a new Office Suite. So if that could be put off until that time, you might not have to make that expenditure for another couple of years, perhaps when the economic climate's much better and you can afford it.
We can certainly look at that, but once again, it will only be a one-time cut. So it's good to cut $30,000, but then it will only help us for the one fiscal year. And we haven't made the expenditure yet either, so we're holding on that.
But anyway, those were just some of the things that I looked at, and that was only 40 minutes. I didn't get done looking at the folder yet, so.
And those, those suggestions are very appropriate. I think what we need to be looking at is, we are going to have to make one-time cuts. But I think in the long run, if you look at our 5-year projection, we have to make cuts that are going to be cumulative over the 5-year period and not just look at a point in time today, but what effect does any one of those cuts have over the 5 years? And so, there's certainly some one-time things that, we can probably do that. But in the long run, does it save us any money down the road 5 years from now?
The only other concern I have to voice too is, and some people again aren't going to like to hear this, and a lot of the things that should be taken into account should start from the top down. I mean, we're a city only a little over 17,000 people, and I mean, we're paying some of our upper city staff same things that other cities of 80,000 or higher are paying theirs, and it just doesn't equate quite right. So instead of, losing some of the lower worker bees that actually take care of some of the services for our city and some of the things that citizens expect to see for their services, I think it needs to be relooked at, and some of those cuts need to come from the top.
Thank you, Drew.